What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Final Whistle First Down. My name is Nathan. It is a huge week of Steeler football ahead this weekend as the Pittsburgh Steelers are set to face the 2-1 Minnesota Vikings in Ireland. Let's talk about it. So the Pittsburgh Steelers coming off of a big win against the New England Patriots, 21-14. The Vikings also coming off a massive win against the Cincinnati Bengals themselves. The final score of that game was 48-10. So the team coming in playing the better football has definitely been the Minnesota Vikings. They, of course, are also 2-1 with a loss to the Atlanta Falcons in Week 2, 22-6. But then they beat the Bears Week 1, 27-24 in prime time. Monday, I think it was Monday or Thursday night. It was one of the two. I think it was Monday Night Football at the top of my head. The Steelers coming off of a win, like I just said, to the New England Patriots, 21-14. Their 2-1 record includes a Week 1 win over the Jets, 34-32, and then a loss in Week 2, just like the Vikings. But this one was a 31-17 loss at home to the Seattle Seahawks. And then last week, even though they forced 5 turnovers, they only won by 7 points in New England. So we already talked about that in our recap, so you can go check out Danny and I talk about that. But taking a look ahead, Ireland, welcome to Dublin, the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Minnesota Vikings. This has been a game many fans, especially Pittsburgh fans, have been waiting for. I think the Rooney family heritage just seems like whole trip is just to honor the legacy of the Rooney family. And that is exactly what they're doing. The Steelers made it known that Ireland was going to be their partner country when the NFL announced these international market sponsorships. I think at the top of my head, the Steelers got Ireland and Mexico. So it's making me wonder if the Steelers are also going to be heading to Mexico City, maybe next year, maybe in a few years. But maybe this Ireland thing is here to stay, maybe every other year for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But they finally get there. I know a lot of Yinzers are heading over. So it should be a fun game going to Croke Park on the 28th this weekend on Sunday. Early morning, 9:30 in the morning football. So make sure you wake up early for this one. But yeah, hopefully the Steelers play good enough to be happy all day and not angry at what happens. So, ESPN, I'm looking at their analytics page. They love the Vikings in this matchup. The Vikings are the heavy favorites on ESPN. 57.3% chance of the Vikings winning this game according to ESPN analytics. The Steelers are only giving a 42.3% chance. Now, the Steelers are the designated home team, and I'm assuming there are going to be a lot more Steelers fans there than Vikings fans. But honestly, who knows at this point, because I think both teams will be well represented, even though I think it's majority going to be Steelers fans. So taking a look really quick at the injury report, here are the big ones for each team. The Minnesota Vikings, big injuries. Donovan Jackson, guard, is out. Andrew Van Ginkel, one of their linebackers, is also out. And the big name, J.J. McCarthy, basically, I would say his rookie year, he's lost all of last year to an injury. He is out with the ankle injury that he sustained last week. Aaron Jones Sr. is also on the IR, and Gabriel Murphy is questionable. So those are the big 5. For the Pittsburgh Steelers, there were some big question marks going into their last practice in Pittsburgh. Jaylen Warren is questionable right now with the knee injury. I think he is going to play. Hopefully it was just rest. Joey Porter Jr. is also questionable. Who knows? Maybe he can come back. Jonnu Smith, questionable. Alex Highsmith, of course, is out. Max Sharping is on the IR. I'm pretty sure Deshaun Elliott also might play. But seeing Jaylen Warren on the questionables, it's kind of little bit nerve-wracking if you're a Steelers fan. The run game hasn't been able to get itself figured out. They need to have Jaylen Warren healthy, because if Jaylen Warren is not healthy, you are going to see a lot of Kenneth Gainwell and then Caleb Johnson, who didn't play last week in response to the botched kickoff return. I can only presume he was benched last week because of that. So he would be sliding into running back 2 in this situation. So looking at team leaders for each team, for the passing yards, Aaron Rodgers leads J.J. McCarthy, 586 to 301. Now, Carson Wentz did play last week, so he'll probably pass J.J. McCarthy by this game. Jordan Mason versus Jaylen Warren. The Steelers running back group hasn't been able to get going. Warren's only at 132 yards. Mason's at 214. He was already higher than Aaron Jones, so that's saying something there. Justin Jefferson and Jaylen Warren are your leading receivers. Justin Jefferson already at 200 yards as well as a touchdown. And then Jaylen Warren, this is also a question mark. He is also the Steelers' leading wide receiver or receiving target, 142 yards. So Jaylen Warren, running back 1, is also being treated as wide receiver 1. So that is an issue that the Steelers need to figure out. When it comes to sacks, Javon Hargraves and TJ Watt. Hargrave with 2 and TJ Watt with 2 in the last game. That is enough for the team lead in sacks, so both of them are tied. And total tackles, Patrick Queen with 24 and Pace Jr. with 26 for the Minnesota Vikings. So, what does each team have to do this? So I want to take a look at what the Vikings did last week successfully against the Cincinnati Bengals. Let me pull up that game really quick to look at the box score. So this is how the Vikings were able to win. Here's some stats that they put up. So Carson Wentz, in his first start of the year after the injury, he went 14 of 20, 173 yards, averaged 8.7 a play, 2 touchdowns, no picks, was only sacked 3 times. He did only put up a QBR of 35.3, but his passer rating of a 129.8, very solid. Jordan Mason, leading rusher, 16 of 116 yards, 2 touchdowns, a long of 24. So this is another game where the Steelers are going to have to try to keep a running back below 100 yards. I know they did it last week against the trio of Patriots running backs fumbling the ball, Stevenson, Gibson, and Henderson, but they have had trouble before that. You think about it. Kenneth Walker ran right over them at Acrisure Stadium. Breece Hall ran right over them at MetLife. Jordan Mason, now that Aaron Jones is hurt, he's going to probably put up these numbers again, unless the Steelers' defense can play kind of how they did in New England, but maybe stop the run a little bit more better, especially against a solid running back, because I think Jordan Mason is very underrated. Receiving-wise, these are the big threats and what they did last week. Justin Jefferson, of course, 5 for 75, a long of 36 on 7 targets. TJ Hawkinson also is going to be back, so that's good to see for them. He is healthy, 5 for 49. And a touchdown, a long of 13 on 6 targets. Jalen Naylor, 3 for 37. Xavier Scott, that is, 1 for 20. Josh Oliver, 1 for 12. Ty Felton, 1 for 9. Adam Thielen, of course, had 2 targets. He was, of course, brought back to Minnesota. No yards, and Cam Akers, no yards as well on a target. Now, this Vikings defense thrived. It thrived a lot. Xavier Scott got a fumble. Jonathan Allen recovered one. Blake Brandel recovered one. Isaiah Rodgers had a couple big plays. He recovered one. Jeff Okudah recovered one as well. Ivan Pace Jr., hope I pronounce it. It's either Ivan, let's just say Ivan Pace Jr. But yeah, call me casual for not knowing how to pronounce Ivan Pace Jr. 12 total tackles, 9 solo, 3 QB hits, so he's a guy to keep a lookout to maybe this O-line to protect Aaron Rodgers. He wasn't sacked last week, so it's going to be interesting. Second on their defense, Eric Wilson, 7 total tackles, 5 solos. Joshua Metellus, 5 total tackles, 4 solos, 1 pass deflection. Other than that, taking a look, 2 pass deflections for Isaiah Rodgers. He, of course, also had 2 touchdowns. Isaiah Rodgers, looking at the play-by-play and how he was able to get in, last week we got to see Isaiah Rodgers, an 87-yard interception return for him. And then he also had a 66-yard fumble recovery. So let's try, if you're the Steelers, to keep the ball away from Isaiah Rodgers. That is definitely going to be the big difference maker. This Vikings defense is also led by Brian Flores, a former Pittsburgh Steelers member of the coaching staff. Of course, Tomlin got rid of him, and now he's one of the best defensive masterminds in the league today. And this Vikings defense has looked pretty solid. I mean, they did play the Bengals last week, and Jake Browning. It's not Joe Burrow. If it was Joe Burrow, maybe it's a different story. But this Vikings offense is just good enough to keep putting up points. Now, J.J. McCarthy, I like to say this. I said this on our recap of Week 3. Carson Wentz, I kind of look at as someone that they probably could have just started this season. I know J.J. McCarthy is the future. I said it on our previous live that I'm a big believer in J.J. McCarthy. I personally do like the Michigan Wolverines. I'm rooting for his success in the NFL. But he has not looked good in these first couple NFL games, and honestly, I wouldn't have been shocked if the Vikings said, you know what, let's just roll with Carson Wentz these first 5 weeks, see where we're going to be. If we're already out of it, let J.J. McCarthy play. If Carson Wentz is thriving, maybe roll with him a little bit until maybe a sadly injury happens, J.J. McCarthy's there. Or if Carson Wentz starts to make a lot more mistakes, Carson Wentz gets benched, J.J. McCarthy comes in. The Vikings instead roll with McCarthy. So Carson Wentz easily could have been listed as their starter already. So I don't really like the notion that a lot of Steelers fans or like NFL writers or reporters have said that Carson Wentz, the Steelers are getting lucky playing a backup. Carson Wentz easily could have been the starter for this Vikings team. So I'm treating Carson Wentz still as he is the starter of this team because he played way better in one game than J.J. McCarthy honestly did in both of the previous games. But Carson Wentz, this Vikings team did it with Sam Darnold. They made Sam Darnold look great, and now Darnold's been kind of average. He's still good, but he's been looking a little bit less than what he did in Minnesota with Seattle. But you provide Carson Wentz with Justin Jefferson, T.J. Hawkinson, you're going to have him thrive. And Justin Jefferson's going to put up great numbers no matter, I don't think, who the quarterback even is. So yeah, they did that against Jake Browning and the Bengals, sure, but the Vikings defense was still able to do good things against Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase only had 5 total catches for 50 yards. They held Jamar Chase to 50 yards on defense. T. Higgins only had 1 reception on 2 targets. He only had 15 yards. They held T. Higgins, who's getting paid big bucks as their wide receiver too, to 15 yards. The Vikings defense is what I could call pretty legit, and I think it should be treated legitly. Taking a look at what the Steelers did last week, I know we recapped it, but just to go over things a little bit very briefly. So, the Pittsburgh Steelers, of course, the star of the show was their defense last week. The Patriots easily could have won this game, but the Steelers defense was able to prevail at the end on a play where the Patriots wide receiver ran backwards. We got to see his inner Deontay Johnson show, so that's great. Aaron Rodgers didn't have the greatest game. Carson Wentz definitely outplayed him last week. Aaron Rodgers against the Patriots, 16 of 23, 139 yards, 2 touchdowns, a pick. His average was 6 yards a play, 42.9 QBR on a rating below 100 at 96.1. Jaylen Warren, 18 of 47, long of 11, only averaged 2.6. Now, Jaylen Warren started out hot. We discussed this on our recap of the Patriots game. Again, you can go check that out on the channel. But he started out hot, then the O-line started to struggle. Now, the trade-off of that is Aaron Rodgers wasn't sacked. So you were saying, okay, they didn't get to the quarterback. He did have to get rid of it a lot quicker, but the run game kind of slowed down because Jaylen Warren, the first drive, was getting some big chunks, including that 11-yard long he had. Receiving-wise, I would love to see the Steelers get the receiving core going for this game. They need to try to attack this Vikings defense some way, shape, or form to maybe go after, maybe even test Isaiah Rodgers to see, okay, let's see if you can do it again against the Steelers here and DK Metcalf. So, Calvin Austin, 3 of 34 is wide receiver 2. He's having a great start to the season, in my honest opinion. 1 touchdown, it was the game winner, along with 17, 5 targets. Jaylen Warren, again, 5 receptions, 6 targets. He's the leading receiver on the team because of that. He's kind of been a receiving back this year. 34 yards. DK Metcalf, 3 receptions, 4 targets, 32 yards. I kind of want to see a little bit more from DK Metcalf. The first talking point I want to talk about, though, is the tight end room. I want to see the tight ends a lot more. Jonnu Smith, 3 receptions, 3 targets, only 23 yards. Pat Freiermuth on 3 targets, 1 catch for 6 yards. Pat Freiermuth had less receiving yards than Kenneth Gainwell, who had 1 target for 10. Of course, the defense thrived. Jonnu Smith did fumble, but it went out of bounds. I'm pretty sure they got it back. Darius Slay recovered something. It doesn't really say, but he recovered something. TJ Watt also recovered something. Jabril Peppers in his debut game against the Patriots recovered something. Peyton Wilson also recovered something. So 4 turnovers forced on fumbles. Good for them. I know Patrick Queen's been getting a lot of slack. I think he played a pretty good game compared to what a lot of Steelers fans are saying. I know the whole communication's been struggling with this defense, which it has. But Patrick Queen, yet again, 10 total tackles, 6 solos, 1 tackle for loss, 2 pass deflections. Peyton Wilson, I want to see some more from Peyton Wilson and Cole Holcomb. This linebacker room, the middle linebackers of Patrick Queen, Peyton Wilson, Cole Holcomb, need to be better. Not just Patrick. It's not all on Patrick Queen. I know he's making all the money, but Peyton Wilson in year 2 has to be better. I know Cole Holcomb's coming off the injury. It needs to be better because I'm gonna say the infield. I'm in baseball mode, but the middle of the field has been open so many times. I was at the game against Seattle. Cooper Kupp wide open on 3rd and long every single time. This past week, Hunter Henry, 2 touchdowns. You couldn't stop him. He was finding himself wide open in the middle of the field even for deep plays, for touchdowns. Like, you could not stop Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry was the Patriots' leading receiver last week, 8 for 90 on 11 targets. They targeted Henry 11 times. He was the most targeted guy in this game compared to both teams. He was targeted more than DK Metcalf. Now, what the Steelers need to do in response to this. Now, let me say this also really quick. Cam Hayward's the MVP. I already gave him MVP of the last game. Basically saved 2 touchdowns on a pass deflection and, of course, the fumble recovery he forced. So, what the Steelers need to get doing, here's the key to my victory if I'm giving a key to victory here. I want to see the Steelers get the tight ends more involved. Pat Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith need to be used a lot more. Darnell Washington needs to be used a lot more. Mount Washington, I like to call him. I know a lot of fans like that as well. Where has he been? If you're not going to use him as a tight end, you have 3 very solid options as a tight end. Put the big guy on the O-line to help out. Put him on the O-line, see what can happen, because we all know the O-line's been, it's been very blah. I know they were graded really high by PFF. Personally, I do not like PFF because I don't know if they actually watch the football games. We're watching it. The Steelers' run game couldn't get going. I know they protected Aaron Rodgers, but the only one that I think had the greatest game last week was Zach Frazier and probably Sayamalu. Broderick Jones, Troy Fautanu have been iffy, especially Broderick Jones. Mason McCormick's been fine. I don't think he had the greatest game last week, in my opinion, but he has been good. Broderick Jones and Troy Fautanu. Fautanu was, of course, hurt as the first-round pick. He didn't play at all last year, kind of the J.J. McCarthy situation. But this time, as an O-lineman, he's looked kind of in these first 3 games of the year. I'm hoping for big things out of Fautanu. I really liked the pick in the first place. I think he's going to be a very solid NFL player, but the Steelers desperately need to get a lot out of him. And, of course, the big one, Broderick Jones. He's been the talking point of Steelers fans, especially since last season, even with the draft pick. They traded up to get him because they thought the Jets were going to take him, so the Patriots traded the pick away. Patriots probably shouldn't have done that because they would probably love to have Broderick Jones on the Jets right now to get right past that O-line. Broderick Jones has to be better. I know Big Ben said some stuff on his podcast, some pretty harsh criticism saying like he has to be better, and basically took the words out of every Steeler fan's mouth. Broderick Jones just has to be better. Because Aaron Rodgers, if he keeps getting hit like he has, I know he didn't get attacked last game, but you have to give Aaron Rodgers time to throw the football. I know he wasn't sacked, but he has to have a lot more time to make plays develop, because I don't know what happened. It started with the Seahawks game, and we saw it last week. In weeks 2 and 3, they started just going short. I need to see them hitting deep. I need to see Aaron Rodgers throwing some deep balls. We got to see a kind of deep ball to Calvin Austin for 17 yards and the touchdown. But, I want to see the DK Metcalf chunk plays. I want to see Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith being hit over the middle. I think a lot of Steelers fans want to see this. We just haven't been able to see it yet because I think the O-line's not giving Rodgers enough time to throw the stupid football. That's just very blatant to see. Broderick Jones has to be better because, of course, Broderick Jones, I think, is coming up on his 5th-year option. It's going to be a lot of discussions. If they let him walk in a year or so from now, it's going to be a waste of a first-round pick because he hasn't panned out, and then you think he might discover what he can do. Because think about Devin Bush, too. Devin Bush is now on I think his 3rd or 4th team since getting drafted by the Steelers, who they also traded up to pick. And I think he's actually having a pretty solid start to the year right now. And it seems like he's finally starting to click. So I hope Broderick Jones isn't going to be the Steelers' version of the Devin Bush pick again, because this is a guy they traded up for, they thought really highly of, and it just hasn't worked out. So, key to the game besides the O-line, like I just said, I want to see the tight ends get involved more. You have Pat Freiermuth, Jonnu Smith, and Darnell Washington, Mount Washington. You got to get these guys going because you have 3 very solid options at tight end. Pat Freiermuth's making money. Jonnu Smith's making some good money as well. And Darnell Washington's still on the rookie deal. Darnell Washington also, I don't think Herbig or Benton, even though Benton's kind of been But Herbig, I'm pretty sure, if I'm thinking right, was the year after Kenny Pickett's draft class. Darnell Washington and Connor Hayward have, I pretty much had the best success out of the Kenny Pickett draft class. Darnell Washington has been the best pick of that draft class for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they're not using him as much. We got to see him get used a lot more by Justin Fields last year, and it was a breath of fresh air seeing that. But now it seems like he's kind of being treated as a true 3rd tight end, which when you have Pat Freiermuth making a lot of money, when you have Jonnu Smith coming in after a really big year for the Dolphins, it makes a lot of sense to have him as tight end 3. But like I said before we got into the O-line, you can also use Darnell Washington to help block for Aaron Rodgers. This could be a very big thing that the Steelers could use against this Vikings Brian Flores-led defense. Because you think Brian Flores is going to be coming out for some revenge on Mike Tomlin to try to get one on him. The Steelers could totally lose this game going 2-2. That is why they are not the favorites. The defense hasn't looked good. I know last week was good, but with the defense slightly getting better last week, the offense looked like, to put it bluntly, garbage. Key to the game number 2, what I'm going to say is they have to get this running game going. Jaylen Warren is the leading rusher every week. Cool. But I want to see a running back get over 50 yards for the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is an interesting thing about the Steelers running back room. No running back has put up 50 yards yet in a game, and that is very concerning. 11 for 37 in game 1 for Warren, 14 for 48 in game 2 for Warren. Against the Patriots, 18 for 47. His longest rush this year has been 11 yards. Running back was something, after Najee Harris left, was supposed to be figured out. Now, Najee Harris was also a big talking point. Sure, he put up the 1,000-yard seasons every single year. He is durable. I don't think he even got hurt once with the Steelers, or that actually might have been George Pickens. But even then, Najee Harris is putting up 1,000-yard years. I know that stat some people think is overrated because a lot of running backs are able to hit that. But if you're getting 1,000 yards for a running back every single year, that can be very useful, and that is very durable as well. Jaylen Warren has not eclipsed 1,000 yards ever, and he's officially hit 1,000 yards on his career as 1,036. Jaylen Warren, the way this season is going, might not even hit 700. That is 700 or 800, that is. I'm trying to do the quick math. I don't think he's going to hit 1,000. This is year 4. Jaylen Warren was also just extended. They need him to be a lot better. Now, he can be explosive. He's definitely faster than Najee and even Caleb Johnson. That's why Caleb Johnson is compared to Najee Harris. But they need Jaylen Warren in this run game to get going. And that's not on Jaylen Warren. I know Jaylen Warren's probably been one of the better players on this team. That goes back to the offensive line, especially Broderick and Fautanu on the outside. McCormick, Frazier, and Sayamalu, I think, have done their jobs really well to get the inside going. But Jaylen Warren has had a lot of issues running to the outside. And when Jaylen Warren runs, it's really fun to watch because he's basically just a bowling ball. He's really electric to watch. He throws his body out there, and he is willing to take a good hit. He's 26 years old. He's getting to that age where the running backs kind of start to go a little south, and people start to be like, okay, they are replaceable. Jaylen Warren is official RB1. Najee Harris is out, and sadly for the year now because he tore his Achilles, so best of wishes to Najee Harris. But Jaylen Warren, he needs to prove that contract was worth it, that extension was worth it. I think it was, and I think it was well worth the money that they spent because they didn't blow the checkbook. Because people were worried it was going to be that crazy money. It was not crazy money in the NFL. The cap goes up every year. It's fine. But they need some more production out of Jaylen Warren. 3.1 yards a carry isn't going to do that. He needs to be a guy that can replicate Najee Harris's numbers, get close to them, or slightly overperform Najee Harris's rushing totals. Because if Warren can't hit 1,000 yards a year or this season, I think fans are going to start to see what Najee Harris actually did for this team. You have a running back that can hit 1,000 yards. That is very good. Jaylen Warren right now through 3 games is only at 132, 29th in all of football. His average run per yards per play at 3.1, 131st, and he's tied for 15th on carries with 43. No touchdowns yet. Is this the week though the running back room can get into the end zone? I sure hope so. So Jaylen Warren and the running backs, and I'm going to include the O-line in this for the keys to the game. We're going to go tight end room, use that. Number 2, the running backs and O-line have to get going. And, of course, number 3, the defense. I need to see another big week for this defense. Cam Hayward, big game. I know he's on his podcast. He's been excited for this Ireland game. TJ Watt finally broke the sack streak. I think it was 6 games without one. He puts up 2. Nick Herbig has also looked really good, especially after the Highsmith injury. Highsmith is a guy that I don't want him to be traded, but he is making money. And you have Nick Herbig. But Nick Herbig thrives in that utility role. So if you can be able to find a way to keep Highsmith after this year to maybe make something work with Herbig and a contract, because Herbig's going to be due money soon. And he will get paid, I think, on the open market. So this is something we can definitely talk about after the season's over on the main live streams we do. So make sure also to subscribe and hit the bell down below to know when we do go live. We cover NFL, we'll do recaps and previews, and then the Steelers stuff, we'll have recaps live, and the previews will be recorded as of now. We might do some live, so make sure to keep up for those. But they need to get this going with the tight ends, the O-line, the running backs, and the defense has to even be better. And I'll include the big part of the key to the victory for the Steelers. Tight ends in the middle of the field, we talked about it, have destroyed them. Cooper Kupp and the Seahawks, it was used all the time. The slot guy. Hunter Henry last week almost puts up 100 yards as well as 2 touchdowns. He was in the 90s of total yardage. They're facing TJ Hawkinson this week, who's a pretty solid tight end. And yeah, that is going to be an iffy thing. I need to see a lot. Patrick Queen looked good last week, and he's been, I think, a lot more solid at the start of this year compared to the start of last year. But I think we need better out of Patrick Queen, especially with the money he is making. He's making good middle linebacker money. Now, Cole Holcomb and Peyton Wilson are another story. They're not making as much, but you need to see better out of Peyton Wilson in year 2. He talked a lot in I almost said spring training. In training camp, Pirates season's almost over, thank goodness. But we've heard so much out of Peyton Wilson to call himself one of the best guys to play the position. He was in college, not as much in the NFL. He's had a lot of hard times stopping the run, and that has been a big issue of finishing tackles. Cole Holcomb, we saw a lot before he got hurt. He had some moments in the Patriots game and then the game before against Seattle and then, of course, against the Jets. But it hasn't been the Cole Holcomb I think we saw before the injury in that Green Bay game. But, yeah, this is a big game for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers, of course, after this are heading to Acrisure. Actually, no, they have the bye, and then they come home against the Browns. So this is going to be counting last week, this week, the bye week. So it's 4 weeks. So it's been 4 weeks since they'll have their home game. I think if I did the math right, it's 3 or 4. But yeah, this is a big one for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They have to figure out a way to get this win because I don't think the Steelers want to be coming home at 2-2 because this is basically a home game as well. This is treated as a home game. They are the known home team, so that's going to be interesting, the listed home team. So I don't want to count this as a real home game, but either way, they could be 0-2 as a home team. That can't be. There's going to be definitely a lot more Steelers fans there. Like I said, this is for the Rooney family heritage, the legacy, their history in Ireland. This is big. Think about the patch. They got the clover on it with the Rooney name. So, will they win this game? I hope so, but I have my doubts. But like I said, I'm not a professional, but I have a lot of doubts in this game. And if you're interested in this game, I'm looking at it says powered by Vivid Seats on ESPN. The cheapest tickets are as low as $799. So if you have that much money and you're in Dublin, Ireland, go out and see the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Minnesota Vikings. So my final prediction, I don't want to pick the Steelers because I don't think they're going to win, but just for fun, we're picking the Pittsburgh Steelers because why can't you? The Steelers, of course, lost their last game in the international area. Aaron Rodgers, I think, lost also last year in London. I think the Jets were in London, if that's what it was, if I'm listening to the radio right today. I'm at the top of my head. But I think the Steelers survive this game. It's going to be a close one. I know there was a dumb thing on NFL Network, like a dumb screenshot I saw on Twitter. Someone guessed on NFL Network, one of the reporters on the predictions, 16-5. That's just a stupid guess. But it could happen. It's Steeler football. We've seen crazier things. I'm going to go with the offense maybe getting a little bit going. The defense might also still have some struggles, but it's also the Justin Jefferson effect. Can they hold Jordan Mason below 100 yards as well? That is also a big question. Let's go with the final score of 24-21. It is a Chris Boswell winning field goal. He didn't get to do anything last week. I know he wanted to kick a field goal. Tomlin didn't let him. He lived in his fears, blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to turn this into a Tomlin rant, but you can list your comments, concerns, or whatever about that down below. But I'm going to go 24-21. Pittsburgh Steelers get the win in Ireland, head into the bye week 3-1. The Vikings, of course, I think are also staying in Europe, so they'll be 2-2. But yeah, that's all I have for you guys today. Make sure to subscribe to the channel down below. We are the Final Whistle. Myself and my guy Danny, he might be on these previews in the future. I know he's busy during the week. But yeah, we'll be live for our basically just normal Final Whistle recaps and previews of the NFL entire slate. And then he'll be live with me as well for our recap of this game. If we get a set schedule, because we're trying to figure that out still. We did Tuesday this past week, so maybe on Tuesdays we'll have the recaps of these games. So make sure to subscribe down below. Hit the bell so you know when we are live. Help us get close to 100. I think we're at 58 subscribers, actually 57 subscribers right now. So help us get to 100 if you enjoyed this. Make sure to comment your thoughts down below, comment your predictions, leave a like on the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Thanks for watching. My name is Nathan. Have a good one, and I'll see you next time.